Hi everyone, Mike here from Bikes by Mike for another cycling related video. Today it's all about protection, but not bike protection, more important protection. Today I'm going to give my review of Crotch Guard skincare treatment and comparing it to the chamois creams on the market today that I've used in the past. But first, what are we talking about here? Well, the purpose of chamois creams or skincare oil is basically to make you more comfortable on the bike and to prevent saddle sores. So what are saddle sores, you say? Basically something you never want to experience. But essentially they are infected hair follicles caused by abrasion or chafing where your butt contacts the saddle. And they hurt, like they hurt a lot. First, I know what some of you are thinking. I don't need this stuff. This is stupid. Chamois creams for softy, roady types. There are a lot of pro riders that have pulled out of races due to saddle sores. But just off the top of my head, there's Eddie Merckx, the cannibal, Tom Dumoulin, Sean Kelly, Lance Armstrong, and a whole slew of other ones that I can't think of right now. So to dispel any notion that these hard men aren't actually hard, but just softies deep inside, I'll give you one really good example. So let's take an example of the cyclist that is regarded by many to be the greatest of all time, the great Eddie Merckx. So let's take the 1975 Tour de France race where Eddie Merckx eventually finished second to Bernard Thévenet. Eddie Merckx faced brutality on two stages. On stage 14, while climbing one of the major climbs of that stage, he was punched in the face by a spectator on the side of the road. That left him quite injured and he was taking painkillers for the remainder of the race. But as bad as stage 14 was, it wasn't as bad as stage 17, where on a descent where he was trying to make time and was chasing down Bernard Thévenet, he crashed on a corner and injured his hip and knee and also broke his cheekbone in two places. Later on, when Eddie Merckx was asked about that crash and specifically about the pain, his simple response was, "You cannot imagine it possible." Now, did I mention that Eddie Merckx once abandoned a race due to saddle sores? That shows you how painful they are. Okay, I digress. Back to chamois cream and a little bit on the history of it. So chamois cream gets its name from what it's to be applied to, which is the chamois or chamois of the bike shorts. So back in the old days, chamois were actually made of leather. And while the leather started off very soft and supple, over time through washings, the leather would dry out, harden up, and become very abrasive and cause chafing. So they really needed a cream that could condition the leather over time and still keep the riders comfortable, or as comfortable as you can be with a leather chamois. So luckily for all us riders, the leather chamois is long gone and has been replaced with various synthetic chamois that are much more comfortable and stay soft and supple through multiple washings. So technology has partly eliminated the need for chamois creams and skincare products, but not entirely. But no matter how good your bike shorts are, there's still going to be friction between your shorts and your important parts, and also between your important parts. You know, figure it out. And for those of you that say, I ride a lot, I've never needed chamois cream, I say, go on 5-hour plus rides over multiple days in the heat and report back. But seriously, you don't always need chamois cream, but when you do, you really do. And even if there's only a 1% chance that going without will cause saddle sores, you just don't want to risk it. It's just not worth it. It's too painful. So now that we agree that skin protection is necessary, let's review some of the options. All creams labeled chamois cream are essentially the same. They contain mainly water, a bit of wax, butters, oils, antibacterial ingredients, and maybe a few more additives. Now sure, some manufacturers say that their creams are different than others, but even based on what they say, those differences are very minor. All these creams essentially work the same way. They provide a physical barrier between you and your shorts. So they aren't really overly complicated, and for that reason, they all perform pretty much the same. I think the main difference between the different chamois creams is some are a bit more viscous than others. So some go on a bit more thicker, others a bit more thin. And I think based on that, the thicker ones tend to last a bit longer than the thinner ones. But the sensation isn't terribly good with some of them either. That's why Crotch Guard by Dermatect is different, because it's an oil, it's not a cream, it's not a chamois cream. It essentially has two ingredients, neither of which I can pronounce, but the first is the active ingredient that protects the skin, and the second is an antibacterial agent. As for the active protective agent that I can't pronounce, it works in the skin as opposed to just on the skin like typical chamois creams. So this is a really interesting part if we believe the manufacturer's claims that this product is designed to replicate the molecular structure of lipids found in abundance on the human skin. So they're composed of cholesterol, waxes, fatty acids, and vitamin A, D, E, and K. An interesting characteristic of these lipids is that they attract and retain water. So they're important to keep the skin hydrated and healthy. See where this is going? So these lipids organize themselves in biolayers similar to natural skin. And because of this, they're very well tolerated by the skin and essentially form a second skin. So how well does it work? So because the weather isn't that nice, it's a bit cold, I've been spending most of my time on my indoor trainer. So my rides are less than 2 or 2.5 hours typically, but I have been doing back-to-back days of riding and have been able to test out the skincare product that way. First, I'll say that on paper, it does seem better than typical chamois cream. It's hyperallergenic, it's completely grease-free and oily-free. It's very compact in that you don't use much and it comes in small bottles. And it doesn't contain any dyes or fragrances, which I think is great because a lot of the chamois creams are just heavily perfumed. So how do you apply it? Good news. You don't have to dip your hand into a vat of greasy, oily muck. You just simply spray it on your parts that contact the saddle and the parts that contact each other, and that's it. And yes, you can rub it into your skin if you're not squeamish, but it's not absolutely necessary. If you don't rub it in, you'll probably just use a bit more just spraying it on. Some people have commented that the spray doesn't work that well and that it's hard to get the spray in the parts that need to be sprayed. I didn't find that at all, and I kind of wonder where they're spraying it. What I found good, and surprisingly good, was the fact that even though it's an oil and physically it's very thin, when you have it on, it feels like more protection or more of a physical barrier than the creams do. And it's also just a better sensation because you don't feel like you're swimming around in cream. I find it lasts just as good at the end of a ride as the beginning, and it definitely overall reduces friction. It washes out of clothes easily, it evaporates, it's non-greasy, it doesn't stain. It's just a really good product. So yes, I need to try it out on longer rides, but I expect I'll be more impressed on the longer rides because I think it'll last throughout the duration of the ride, unlike chamois creams. And I do buy their claim that it is being absorbed and accepted by the skin. So it's more healing the skin as opposed to just providing a physical barrier between you and the shorts. So what's the verdict? I give it 2 solid thumbs up. It's definitely better than any chamois cream I've tried, and I've tried at least half a dozen over the years. And it's just a better product, and I think it's a more healthy product to use overall. At $21.99 Canadian for a 4-ounce bottle, I'd say on a per application basis, it probably is at roughly the same cost as most chamois creams, maybe even a bit less. So you can buy Crotch Guard directly from Dermatect out in New York, or you can buy it from the UK distributor Pedal Buddies. So I've dealt with them both through 2 separate orders. They're both really good to deal with, and special thanks to Pedal Buddies for resolving the issue I had with my initial order. That's all I got for today, folks. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. It allows me to produce more content for all of you. Happy rolling.